What's up, Internet? You're tuned in to episode 119 of the PotsCast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined, as always, by my very good friend, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello.
Welcome back, my friend. Another week, another PotsCast.
It is.
Tell you what, last couple weeks, we've had some bangers, some big news, some big guests. This week, I sure hope you like listening to what we talked about playing, because not so much news.
You know why I think it is? It's because it was April Fool's this week.
Yep.
And nobody wants to release any news that might be construed as a joke.
Yep.
On April Fool's week. So now that's out of the way, we're plain sailing and ready for Nintendo to do a Nintendo Direct, because we're all ready for it.
Let's go, right? But yeah, so I will say this week, I'm very, very excited to talk about what I've been playing. So at the very least, I can promise you that's going to be meaty. But before we get into that, let me tell you where you can find the PotsCast all around the web. Of course, we are the PotsCast, LootPots.com's weekly Nintendo and gaming podcast, where Steve and I get together and talk about what we've been playing and what's going on in the world of video games. Of course, if you guys want to be a part of the show, you can write into me at pete@lootpots.com. You can come join our Discord, where our ever-growing community of potsheads just like you are there chatting about games and, sometimes other stuff. If you want to get some more content from us, of course, you can head over to twitch.tv/LootPots, where every Thursday, Steve and I have been streaming games for and with you. This past week, we played a little bit of the game I'm going to be talking about the most in the What We're Playing segment, Disco Elysium, which just came to PS4 and PS5 this past week. We had a blast with you guys in the chat helping us make choices and make our character just a loathsome motherfucker that nobody wants to deal with. So if you want to come be a part of those streams, we would love to see you there on Thursday nights. Come hang out, come chat with us. It's a great way to spend some time and, get a little bit more Loot Pots from us. Plus, you can also go head over to patreon.com/LootPots, where it's the best way to show your support. You can go above and beyond, give us a buck, and get access to our patron exclusive show After Dark, where this week, Steve and I talked about Easter, city living, and probably more stuff.
I don't remember. And it literally just recorded it.
Just recorded it. And I'm like, there was a third thing.
Our new lifestyle brand that doesn't exist.
Yes.
We want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, we're developing a lifestyle brand. So if you want to go hear about that and weigh in on it, you can go hit us up for a buck. And we've got over 80 episodes of After Dark that you'll get access to for just $1. So great way to get a little bit of extra content from us. Learn a little bit more about the men behind the mics. That's what we do over there. So go check that out if you're so inclined. We'd appreciate your support. And of course, head over to the YouTube channel, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share the show with your friends if you enjoy what we're doing here and you think that they might enjoy our particular brand of nonsense. It would be a huge help to us to help spread the word. So let's hop into what we're playing this week. I'm not going to bury the lead. I've been playing a fuckload of Disco Elysium. Last week I talked about how I restarted Ghost of Tsushima and I was doing my New Game Plus run and I was like really sucked back into that. And I kind of forgot that Disco Elysium was out on the 30th because it's like a Tuesday. Like obviously games come out on Tuesdays, but like I don't know. I never think of like new releases.
Yeah, I always think Thursdays is the release day, and that's because that's Nintendo's release day.
Yeah. So
that's the day I always see is the Thursday is going to come out on a Thursday.
And I kind of associate it with that too, because I feel like that would, like, especially before I was doing commentary and stuff, like that would be when I would go get a new game. It would be the Friday night, right? So you could play it over the weekend. But anyway, I was reminded that it dropped that day, and I was like, oh, sweet, great. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to at least start it tonight and get into it. And I've, like, almost played nothing else since it came out. I am sucked into it. So if you don't know, Disco Elysium is a like point and click RPG, is I guess how I would describe it.
It's a CRPG. It's a computer role play game.
Yeah, but like when you say CRPG, I feel like that does conjure like you think of like a Baldur's Gate or and those games have combat and like, this doesn't. So that is, I think, where it is a little unique because it's like a Venn diagram of like point and click adventure, pen and paper role playing game and like a
Mhm.
telltale kind of like choose your own adventure, just pick dialogue options and see what happens kind of thing. And I love it. I love it. The systems for creating your character are so deep. And like the elevator pitch that I've given to Steve and every person who's asked me about it since was what happened when I rolled my character for the first time. So I sit down on Tuesday night and I spend like maybe 15 minutes rolling my character because there are 4 major stats. It's intelligence, emotional intelligence, basically. I think they call it psyche. Your like physical strength, so like how well you can take a hit, how much you can lift, that kind of stuff. And then your reflexes, which applies to both like physical reflexes, like how well you can like aim and shoot your gun, or like your powers of like observation and like mental quickness as well. Like being extra observant and things like that. So each of those stats has like 6, I want to say, maybe 10 substats that are all of these different things. So like in the emotional intelligence, one of them is like empathy, right? And like with the power of empathy, you can read into people's language and their body language. And sometimes you'll like, for example, right? Say my character, you're a detective and you have amnesia and you're trying to solve a mystery is like the conceit of the game.
Well, you don't know you're a detective right at the beginning,
but like,
and you kind of figure it out. But it's in the title of the game, like
yeah.
It's a detective RPG,
right? And like the cover, like you have a badge and stuff, so it's like that's not a spoiler.
And I think the tagline is, "What kind of cop will you be?" Yeah. So you know going into it that you're a police officer. I actually didn't somehow though when we were streaming this.
You found it out.
I like totally missed that you play a police officer. And so I was just like, oh, wait, I'm a cop. And I was like playing into it, right? Yeah. So I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be this superstar cop.
I'm a cop. Yeah. And so the thing that's really interesting about it, right, is like you have all of those substats and there's all of these like silent roles going on in the background. So like based on what your stats are, you'll have observations or have access to certain like things you can try to do or, skill checks that you can run or whatever. And it's really interesting for a lot of reasons because based on how high your base stats are, those first 4 things that I pointed out, some of the abilities, the higher you get, they start to have detriment, and the lower you are, they have detriment. So like one of the examples, so I said, right, when I rolled my first character, I spent 15 minutes rolling my character, reading all the skills and being like, okay, I'm going to go as close as I can to max intellect and max emotional intelligence, and I'll leave the 2 physical stats at 1 because I don't want to be a physical. I'm going to try to talk my way out of things and, like manipulate people. And, I was going to try to just be like a thinker kind of guy. And so you wake up in this hotel room in your underwear that you've trashed, right? And you're like, okay, I guess I should put on my clothes. And you have a tie that's on a ceiling fan that's spinning, and I tried to grab it, and I died of a heart attack.
Because your physical, physique was so low?
My physique was so low, I was only able to take... So there's 2 different forms of health. There's endurance, and I think it's like morale is the other one. So endurance is physical, and morale is mental. So if you run out of your physical endurance, you just die. And if you run out of morale, I think you have a mental breakdown. So I only had 1 health, and I failed this physical roll, so I take 1 damage, and I just died. And they had to explain why he died. So it's like you literally see a newspaper, and it's like, oh, like Ace Detective dies of heart attack or whatever. It's just like,
oh, that's
shit.
So cool. That is really cool. But I remember one of the other consequences we were looking at when I was rolling the character on stream, because you had the controls and I was like picking what I wanted it to be and how we were going to play along with the chat. And I wanted to go really high on empathy because I thought, well, if I'm high on empathy, then I can relate to people a lot better. I'll be able to influence them in ways I wanted to go. But the negative effect of that was if we went too high, he would be like an emotional wreck and he would cry because he would get so invested in what people was telling him. He'd be like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry."
Yeah,
And
like
like we wouldn't be able to do anything.
the way that each of the sub skills is described, it's kind of like at high levels, these are the benefits. At extremely high levels, these could be the drawbacks. And then it'll be like at low levels, at extremely low levels. And yeah, with empathy, I'm pretty sure the way they say it is like if it's high, like you're astute and you read human emotion like a book. But if you're too empathetic, you'll cry for their losses, you'll punch walls for their anger, and you'll just be even more emotionally unstable. So I love the idea that you can intentionally build a flawed character. And that's like part of the fun.
It's really, really cool. Well, again, that was part of the fun in like when we were playing. I actually felt like I was really role playing, and it's the first time I felt like that in a game was like I was playing this role of you have in your head how you want to play, and the game seems to allow you and present you with the options of playing that exact way. At the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing, but then it was like, oh, I'm going to be the superstar cop as soon as we were talking to the mirror. And that's the other thing I really liked about it is that these inanimate objects are like talking back to you. We had it with the mirror, we had it with the trash can.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
And you have that like inner monologue that's like talking back at you as well.
So that's the other thing is that the minor skills, each of those will, when they do those silent checks, you have an internal monologue. So it'll be like, like Steve and I are talking right now, right? Like my empathy roll, I passed my empathy roll. Oh, Steve's smiling. He must be in a good mood. And like you have that dialogue. And what's really crazy is you get into some situations where the skills conflict. So like, I remember I had a situation where it was like, there's this one stat that's in the emotional intelligence one that like leads to you like basically having these weird like supernatural thoughts where you're like, oh, I wonder if something supernatural is going on or whatever. And I had this thing where I passed the roll for both that and logic. So it was like the crazy part of my brain is like, oh no, what if something sinister is in that garbage can? And then the logical part is like, no, it's a garbage can. There's going to be trash in there. Like, it's so funny where like you'll have moments where you're like, oh, which side of my brain do I want to side with?
I really like that, and I loved the person that's following around, Kim. I can't remember his last name, and how he just fucks with you half the time. When what was it? It was like, oh, I wish I could see right inside of that trash can. He's like, oh, I'll get one of the the squad out from the inner vision squad or whatever he was saying.
He's just trolling you, and you're like, oh, really? And he's like, no. It's super funny. My buddy Ozzy, who's like one of my oldest friends, he came through and was in the chat when we were streaming, and I remember he and I have been texting about it, and he was telling me how in like the first run that he did, his main first completed run, he was playing his character. He had like there's like a I think it's one of the physical stats where it's like you're like a drug expert, like you know all about drugs and you love taking drugs and like whatever. So he was like, I just made my guy like a crazy drug addict, and I was like constantly like going and hiding in places where like Kim couldn't see me so I could take drugs, and he knew what I was doing, but like felt bad for me, so he never called me out on it. So he's like, so basically I was just an insane drug addict with a very patient babysitter.
Wow.
Which is just so funny.
Well, what was the one we got? We got Hobocop as one of the. What are they called? What were they called? Like missions or something?
So there are minor missions and everything that are just like you've come up with. Like one of them is like you are in the bar and you're like, oh, I could sing karaoke here, and it's like mission, like sing karaoke, and like you don't have to do that shit.
The bartender, not a bartender, cafe manager was like, never gonna happen.
Never, and it will. I'm gonna do it on my game. I'll tell you that. But then there's also like Steve called out, like Hobo Cop is one of them. One of them is like Communist Cop. One of them is Sorry Cop. One of them is Interesting Cop. And like they're basically these like character archetypes that you can unlock as you go. So like my guy, I remember in the beginning, I was role playing that he wakes up and he is like a reasonable person, right? Like he's just acting like a normal guy, and he's like, oh, Jesus, like, I'm a real alcoholic, huh? Like, I've really fucked a lot of shit up. And, like, he keeps having that realization every time he talks to, like, anybody that, like, oh, they already know who I am and they don't like me. So I've been, like, apologizing to people because my guy's empathetic, and I'm thinking, like, I'm trying to ingratiate myself to them. I want them to feel a little bit bad for me
interesting.
and talk to me a little bit
Yeah.
more. So Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, whereas when I was playing as I'm an alcoholic, but I see myself as a superstar who has no problem in the alcohol. Just
like a delusion of grandeur.
Yeah, it's like totally deluded that the alcohol is like making me better, and again, like we were licking stains off the fucking side and stuff.
And like I didn't do that when that option came up because basically, and like I had a conversation with my brain when it was like, oh, you need alcohol, and I was like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like drinking has worked out that well for me. Like I don't know if I should keep doing that. And they're like, oh,
I wonder if there will be any physical effects if you don't drink, though.
I think there will be.
There would be in real life, like you'd get the shakes and
Kim
stuff.
mentions that you're going through alcohol withdrawals when you like I don't want to keep spoiling plot points, but
okay.
Because right now, I know we've talked around, everything we've talked about is the first, like, 30 minutes of the game, so we didn't really spoil anything, so just want to be clear about that. Also, the way that you build your character and make decisions makes everything so differently. Like, Steve ran into, like, shit I never saw in, like, 10 minutes, so, I got distracted because I was giving that disclaimer. We were saying the thing about, where were we? We were talking about Kim, right?
So the alcohol withdrawal, you said that Kim saw you having alcohol.
Right. So I was talking about how I've been role-playing my character. So I've been apologizing to everybody. And one of the things that was like, oh, all right, whatever, sorry cop. Like, and it asked me if I wanted to be the sorry cop. And I was like, no, I don't want to be the sorry cop. And it's like, whatever. Okay, fine. And then the communist one came up and it gave me that offer. And when you did the hobo cop thing, we said yes. And what we found out, I didn't know because I hadn't said yes to any of them yet. I wanted to see what my other options were first. You unlock new dialogue options based on that and new like ways to interact with the world. So like something that had happened was we did the hobo cop thing, and there's a part where you're like digging through trash and like you got a bunch of prompts that I never saw. And I was like, oh. So there's like even...
Yeah, I was hunting through the bin, but then the bin was fucking with me, saying that like I'd found a gun.
A rifle, yeah.
And you were like, whoa, wait, there was a weapon in there? And then it would go to the... Haha, actually, which was really funny.
Yeah, it was good.
I think that's the biggest draw to the game so far, is just the script is incredible.
Yeah.
Really, really fun. And it's interesting, there was only one word that was censored, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
But it's very curious to me that only that one word is censored, even if it's in the script.
So and for context, the only word that's censored is a slur. And like that's why. And I think it's the right call, because I know for me, that can be a tough line to skirt in fiction, right? Where like there are some people who have this kind of idea that like you should never use words like that, even in fiction, and you know.
No, I disagree with that.
Right, and I think I do too. I think it's about how it's used and if it's being used tactfully, right? And
well,
like,
and I said to you on the stream, I wish there was an option to uncensor that so I could hate that character even more.
Yeah, and you said you're like, I want to have a more visceral reaction to it, and like, and I think that is something that like is important, you know, to like contend with, right? That like it's not like a flippant use of that word. It is to contextualize characters and who they are and what their values are. And in a role-playing game, I find that to make the world feel deeper and more authentic, you know?
Me too. And it's not like that kind of character that use that word wouldn't use it in real life, because they would.
Yeah.
And you can 100% see it. And so yeah, and like it's a word that's been used against me. So I kind of wanted to have that full experience, and it's like censored in both the speech, like the voice, and also the subtitle dialogue. So it's censored in both places.
Yeah, which I do think was the right call. But
me too.
Like you said, you know, I guess you could always give the option to uncensor, but yeah, and just like the fact that it presents like social situations like that, and it allows you to, like, again, you said this before, you really get to kind of be whatever character you want to be, you know? Like I had a scenario where I was interacting with a racist character, and I was able to either like challenge them and kind of like call them out and be like, you're a fucking asshole. You can kind of agree with them in a casual way and be like, oh, like they're not being racist, like that, you know, you're just being sensitive or whatever.
Yeah, and
then,
I kind of feel that's how the character I was playing would react.
Because you were a fucking prick, yeah. And then like the third one was very much like, I'm not gonna touch this, like this has nothing to do with me, like bye. So like the fact that you can kind of like in every situation I've run into, you can either like directly antagonize people, play them a little bit, like, and try to feel things out, or just be like, nope, I'm washing my hands of this, I'm not interested. I love that.
Yeah,
like
me too. And you got like three like playthroughs at least that you could go through, and the fact that I think was it like 3 or 4 at the beginning, and then you could customize it yourself.
Yeah,
so they give you those like 3 pre-built configurations to go in and get a totally different experience with every single time.
Yeah, they give you 3 pre-made builds, and they explain like what their skills are and stuff, and it's like, oh, like you're like a mad scientist, but like you have no human social skills, so everybody fucking hates talking to you. The other, I forget what the other one was, and then there's like the last one is like you're a fucking physical specimen, but you're dumb.
Like a meathead.
Yeah, but you're dumb as a bag of hammers. But you're like a bad motherfucker, you know? So like I'm super excited by that because like again, right? My character, I went 5-5-1-1, so I'm all mental, emotional, no physicality. I'm super excited to play the game again and play a character who's totally physical and like can't figure anything out, you know?
I wonder if you just like intimidate people though by the fact that you are so like athletic or muscular and you have that physical ability.
I'd be
really interested to see what the options are.
I bet you that's how you have to solve situations, is like rather than like trick people into giving you, and I say trick, like that sounds a little more malicious, right? But like you interrogate people. And if you say the right things, they tell you what you need to know. And if you don't, they don't, you know, and like...
Which to me is standard policing. Yeah. Like that's kind of what their job is as a detective.
So like, I love the idea that how you build your character genuinely influences how you solve the murder that you're trying to figure out. Because like, it all really does play so differently. And like I've already gotten opportunities to like get into physical altercations with people and stuff, and like that's so interesting, right? Because I'm like, my guy can't do that, you know, like my guy cannot fight somebody. Like I have in this situation now where somebody's like blocking something I need to get to, and every character who's mentioned him is like, yeah, he's built like a brick shit house. I don't know where this guy came from, but he's huge. Don't fuck with him. And I'm like, oh man, I bet if I was maxed out strength, I could probably fuck him up, you know, just go and just punch him in the face and walk right past him. and that
was like one of the other things the game presented, which I didn't realize and didn't know, was the fact that like if you do fail a roll or you can't solve something because your person's not capable, there was that research screen, right, that like you come up with a solution to it. So we had to play like 30 minutes in game, and it came up with a solution where I needed to go get an object from somewhere else to come back and solve that puzzle.
That's the other thing. Yeah, there are these they're called ideas, and you'll get a thought, and you can like put it, you have this kind of grid, and you start with 3 spaces, and I think it can go up to like 12, and you have the ability to, if you have these thoughts, and the thoughts come up naturally, right? So like, for example, the one that Steve's talking about is your character's trying to do something, and if you don't have high enough endurance, the physical stat, you just like start throwing up and you just can't get past it, and you have to go figure out other solutions. And you get this idea from Kim, the supporting character, who's basically like, you need to get your shit together, and it takes 30 minutes in game for you to quote unquote research that, and then you have like either a detriment or a benefit while you're researching it, and then once it's unlocked, you get permanent skills boosts. That as long as that idea is equipped, you get that permanent boost. But then you can forget it if you want to replace it for something else or whatever. So that's the other way that you can influence your stats, other than just like upgrading your character naturally, because you get experience based on like doing things successfully or whatever. Yeah, man, it's a great game. It's a really great game. I hope, like, I think if it's your kind of thing, we've probably said enough at this point to sell you on it. But I will say that, like, if you are one for story in games, if you are one for, like, you love games that are all about making decisions and, like, kind of testing the boundaries of the world and being like, I feel like I should be able to do this. Is the game going to let me do this? Or, oh, this is what I'd really want to do, or say, can I do that? So far, I haven't hit that wall. I haven't hit that, like, oh, this is a video game moment and I can't do this thing I should be able to do. It's always been explained in universe and felt authentic, and I've always felt like if I had the right thing or the right skills, I probably could do it. So if that's your jam, Disco Elysium is for you.
Yeah, I'm picking this one up. I just can't decide where I want to play it. It's on PC and PlayStation at the moment. But I know it's coming to Xbox and Nintendo Switch, and it's just like, do I just pick this up on PC and play it there?
Zaid bought it for me on Steam so we could do the chat integration. Okay. So I've got it on PC now. So I'm ready to roll another character for the streams, and we'll just have to start over one more time. But
I think you could probably get us to that stage anyway. Like, we took a long time to do not very little in that game.
Yeah, and we were like talking to chat and stuff, so there would be moments where I'm like, what do you want to do? And we're just like sitting at a screen. So yeah, we could probably move it along a little bit quicker if we wanted to catch up and move on. But yeah, so I love Disco Elysium. I imagine I'm going to be talking about it for the rest of the year, off and on. And I'm sure it's a game that's going to come up in the Game of the Year conversation for me.
Well, I feel like this would have probably been one of your games of the year last year if you'd have played it.
Yep, I agree.
And having not even been on the controls, but basically playing the game, I feel like it would have been for me as well. Yeah. Like, this is 100% my kind of game. And one of the things I didn't like about those Infinity Engine games that inspired Disco Elysium, the Baldur's Gate, the Icewind Dale, the Torment one, it's like it was the combat and the party system and having to like get people to join you to go and do a battle. This removes that, but has all of the cool role play stuff that you can do within those games, and I just love that. And what was it that Ozzy said? It's like there's no combat, just conflict or something.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I really liked that.
Yeah.
And it 100% seems to be the case that, you can't just go up to someone and shoot them in the face. You can talk to them, and if conflict occurs, you have to figure a way out of it, whether that be through your physical ability or through your like emotional ability that you've built your character to do.
Yeah, and also, like, I love how much of it comes down to dice rolls, because that was something that, like, you talked about before. There are two kinds of dice rolls. There's white dice rolls and red dice rolls. White dice rolls you can do over when you level up the relevant skill. Reds are one time only. And there was some white roll that came up where we had like a
92%. 92% chance. And we fucking failed. And that's when Kim had to say to me, oh, maybe you should go see such and such. And we went and got the item. And I was just like, are you joking?
Yeah.
And like we failed like a 3% one. And I was like, well, yes, 3%. Like there was very little chance, but 92%, that felt like a dead certain. The fact that we did actually fail, it's like, oh my God.
I love it because it really makes things feel like genuinely random. Because like there's a thing we haven't gotten to yet, and where we were playing, where like you find remember you find the clipboard? It was like your notes or whatever. There's like a compartment in it that you can open. And I had a 3% chance of opening it, but it was white. So I was like, whatever. Like, I'll try it. And if it doesn't work, I'll try it again later. And it was a 3% chance, and it worked. And I got this big chunk of backstory, and I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Like, that's awesome. So yeah, it's cool, man. It's really cool. It makes the world feel alive, and it makes it feel like there are real stakes, because like anything could happen and you could die really easily. At least my character can.
And what happens if you do die? Does it just reload the save from the point you died?
Yeah, it reloads your last save.
So you could give it another go.
Not like where you died. It reloads your last save.
Okay, so did you ever get the tie down, or did you just leave it? You were
I
like, fuck
did.
that, I'm
I
not
did
trying that
get it.
again.
Yeah. So what happened was I
Okay.
died, and because I died in the beginning of the game, I didn't have a save, so I just started over, and like it had my character roll like preset, so it was just like da da da. Okay, I'm back. And it literally took me 3 times before I got out of the room without something killing me, or like
Okay.
running into a wall. Uh,
Because I didn't. I decided not to get the tie after you told me that's how you died. I was like, no, I'm not bothering with that. I'll just forget the tie.
the tie's an interesting item. I think that it's gonna have significance at some point because it talks to you a lot, and I'm like, is this just funny or is it like is this gonna matter at some point? I don't know, but
Okay, interesting. Maybe I will regret not taking the tie. Hmm.
who's to say?
I'm excited about the other game you've been playing as well, though. We should touch on that before we move on to the news.
Yeah. So the other game I jumped into this week was Grindstone, which Steve talked
Yes.
about 2-3 weeks ago. Maybe it was back at the beginning of the month. Um, oh my god, I love it. It's
It's
so
so
good.
good, right?
It's like the best puzzle game I've played in like years. I
I
feel
know, I know.
like
It
I
really is.
it's so unique. So like if you're not aware, right, or if you missed our discussion about it previously, it's a puzzle game where you know it's kind of like a Puyo Puyo where they're like you're on a board and there are all these enemies.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of them. It looks like Candy Crush or Bejeweled, and you've
Yeah.
got like basically colored blobs on a checkerboard.
Yeah, and they're like these cutesy little monsters. And your character is like an adventurer, warrior type, whatever. And each board, you go like you basically build chains of similar colors to build up combos and either like attack bigger enemies or like hit certain objectives. Like there are like collectibles you need to get on each level and everything to like mark it complete and whatever. Um, and yeah, man, I love it. It's been my like I'm in bed like cooling off before I actually go to sleep game lately. And I am on I think you get to the third map and like halfway through it, there's like that little side world where you go underground. So I don't know how far that is, but I'm like
So
probably
the third maps, is that like the plant-based enemies? So they're
no.
like vines and stuff. Maybe
No.
that's number 4.
That's probably 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I've probably played like 30 or 40 levels maybe. Maybe more.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's like 250 or something. It's a
Yeah.
crazy number. Do you get the daily grinds on the Switch version?
Yes, you do.
Awesome. Yeah, because they're really fun, and that kept me coming back and wanting to rank up on that leaderboard.
Yeah.
I really liked it. The greed grind and the speed grind.
I've only done it like once or twice because I had a moment where I was doing it and I was like, I don't think I get this game enough to do this yet. You know?
Yeah, you kind of also need to get familiar with the enemies that it presents to you, because it presents you some from very high levels that you won't have seen before, like some of those Vine ones I was talking, which if you haven't met yet, can be like it can be a little bit intimidating. It's like, well, how do I approach these? How do I kill these?
Yeah. So I kind of just was like, I'm gonna just keep playing to like get my chops up, And now I'm getting to the point where I'm doing like 20, 30 combos.
It's awesome, right? You
Like,
feel like
yeah.
a hero, and you get that square gem with like all the sides or whatever.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, yes.
Yeah. So I'm getting the strategy of it more and more. And yeah, man, I'm just into it. Like I've been fully completing every level before I move on. Like I try to fully complete it on my first run, and if I can't, then I've been running it again to make sure I get like
Yeah, that's what I do. Make sure you get the crown
the
or the
crown.
chest or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
always
the crowns are
crown.
important because that's how you get to the next world, right? It unlocks the door and you
Right.
go up to like the next world, which is really important. And what do you think about the unlockable items, like the weapons you get? I don't know if you've got any of the armor yet.
Yeah.
The potions, things like that you can get down at the inn.
So I like them. It gives the game like a real roguelike kind of quality, where like you're constantly like trying to progress your characters so you can get further and everything. I think I wish that they were a little deeper sometimes. I haven't unlocked all of them, but like I've definitely unlocked a good number at this point, and some of them are way, way more useful than others.
I
And
agree, but then some of them also serve like a fixed purpose.
like the pickaxe.
So yeah, there's the and I wish that's the one criticism I have of that overworld. I wish it showed you either a recommendation or it let you see the board before you had to make your loadout, so you could see the board and go, "Oh, there are boulders on this level. I want the pickaxe."
Yeah.
And you can make that choice before you went in. Because I've got to I have done it a few times. You like load in, it's like, oh, there's boulders. You quit out, you go to the inn, you load up your pickaxe, and then you go back. And it's not a problem in the early games, the early game when you've got 3 slots and you've only got 3 weapons. But as you progress further in, you might have used like one suit on one level, and then on the next level you need a different suit, or you want a different bow and arrow and that kind of stuff. And so that can become quite frustrating and annoying. But other than that, I really, really, really love that game.
I think it also bugs me that you have to go to the inn to equip different things, because it's not a big deal, but it is one of those things where like I start a level and I immediately realize that I need a different item. So I back out, I tap to go back to the inn, the inn loads in, and again, these are all like 1 second loads. It's not like a long wait, but it's just cumbersome, right? Because then the inn loads in, and then you have to go to the right floor and go and navigate to each one of the items that you want, and it's just like, it ends up going from something that like, I feel like I should be able to just be like, oh, back out, boop, 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 go back in. Whereas, like, I have to take, like, 4 steps.
Set loadouts. Like, have a loadout for something that is, like, a boulder level. Have a loadout for a boss level. Have a loadout for one with poison puddles. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And if you had that... And I think the way the greed grind does it, all those daily grinds does it, is the perfect way. Like, they've already solved this problem. You load into the game. You see the map. It does all that preload stuff. And then it's like, right, select what armor you want. Select what weapon you want. And that's how it should be done. If they added that option for all of the built-in levels, then I really feel that would just solve that problem.
Yeah, I think either of those solutions would be better, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a minor complaint. Like, it's definitely something that, like, I would love to see done differently, because it's kind of the one quality of life thing that, like, I have kind of kept bumping up against. But other than that, I think the game is great. Like, I think the art style is really good. It's super, like, distinct. It has personality. And I think that is something that a lot of games struggle with. And it's kind of intangible, right? Is like style and like having a voice. And like the game has style. It has a voice. It like, you look at it and it immediate, like every piece of it communicates to you that this is Grindstone, and like gives you that same aesthetic, and that just kind of like clarity of vision is something that I've really appreciated about it. You know, like it's a simple game, but it's very, very, very tight and very well executed, and like there's care and thought put into every piece of it. You know. And I think that to me is always the thing that takes like the smaller kind of arcadey game like that to the next level, where it's not just a good gameplay loop. It's not just a satisfying system, that it's also like, yeah, man, like this has some character, you know?
Yeah, and everything in that game's got personality, like from the tiny little creatures that you're attacking, and like you go to swipe on them and they're like freaking out that you're gonna come and chomp them down.
Yeah. And the animations are really good. Like when you're going through and your character's got his sword and he's just slashing all the monsters and stuff.
And when he gets to like that big enemy and he's like that one big sword strike. Yeah, and you feel like an absolute hero that you've managed to do it in the chain. And then I love it when you can just do that one big chain, get everything, and then just exit the door. And you've done like all of it, and it's like, oh, the satisfaction where I've just like gone around and done it all.
And I love the way he looks when he takes damage. Like he gets like the black eye, and his face gets all swollen, and he starts wobbling and stuff. It's super funny. Yeah, man, I really love Grindstone. It's awesome. You did not oversell. So if it sounded interesting when Steve talked about it, I'm here to endorse. You should pick up Grindstone. It is the good shit. And I will say, little expensive for a puzzle game, worth every penny.
Yeah, the number of levels you get is
Yeah.
it's insane.
Because it's like $20. And some people are going to be like, I don't want to pay that for a puzzle game. It's absolutely worth it. In my opinion. So, Steve, you were playing a little bit more Littlewood.
I was, yeah, and I want to talk to you about streaming this week. I think I'd like to start a new level with you, start a new world with you, like
Okay.
you did with me with Disco Elysium. We start something new and we kind of progress. But I'll show you my town before we do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just been playing this constantly. This is the game that's been taking up all my time at the moment, and it's kind of the game I needed at the moment. So you'll hear, if you listen to After Dark this week, I've been helping someone move house, and just coming back and relaxing with this is just great. And I've made it to winter, so it very much is like Animal Crossing Stardew Valley in that it has seasons. And I've made it to, I finally unlocked the Master Forge. And me and Chewy were chatting in DM with you about this game. And I really hope he was selling you on it because I think you'd love it. I really do.
You guys
and
definitely made it sound interesting.
I think it would be for Sarah, maybe. Like if she's big into Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley or whatever, then this might be something that she'd be interested in. I'm just trying to sell everyone on this game at this point. Like I've tried selling Macaulay on it. My friend came over for a barbecue with his girlfriend. I was trying to sell her on it. I was like, everyone needs to like play Littlewood. So yeah, this is just my weekly endorsement. Go and play Littlewood. And it's so cheap in the UK. It's like 10 quid. It's worth it.
It's double that over here. They're killing me. But yeah, I am still interested in it. I'm like in a weird spot right now where like I went from having nothing to play to like just an embarrassment of riches now. Yeah, like I've got two AAA replays in the middle with Dishonored and Ghost, and then knee deep in Disco Elysium, and I don't think anything's gonna pull me away from that right now. And I've got Grindstone.
Well, you got 2 weeks till Pokemon Snap, so you better hurry up and sort that out.
I know. Oh man. And not too much longer till Mass Effect. Let's fucking go, baby. Yeah. Let's fucking go. I'm so excited. I'm like viscerally excited. I have to like not think about the fact that Mass Effect is coming because it makes me sad that it's so far away. Oh, I'm so excited. Anyway, let's jump into the news 43 minutes into the show. So first, this is like the big video game story this week. I feel like it's like the thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Which is MLB The Show is coming to Xbox Game Pass day one. So
crazy. That
is crazy. A lot of people probably don't know why that's crazy. So I'll give you the context. So the show has been the MLB game, right? It's like the only Major League Baseball AAA experience for like years at this point. And it's been a PlayStation exclusive for in the neighborhood of like 10 years, I think. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
Steve's looking it up right now. So, and it's developed by one of Sony's internal studios,
San Diego.
Yeah, Sony San Diego. And
so
this
since 2014, it's been the only baseball game on the market, and it debuted in 2006 on the PS2. So since 2006, this game itself has been an exclusive to a Sony platform.
And it's been the only game in town for, 8 years? It's a lot. It's crazy. So, yeah, the show is being like the de facto baseball game and being a PlayStation exclusive. Obviously, big feather in Sony's cap. Not the best thing if you're a fan of baseball, right? And you want to play that game, means you had to get a PlayStation. And, maybe last gen that wasn't such a big deal. But as, gaming continues to get wider and wider, like, you got to imagine that the MLB, wants to see a little bit more money, right? Wants more piece of that pie. So, a few weeks ago, maybe months ago, I'm not totally sure what the timeline was because, it's hard to keep up with time these days. But it was announced that the show was going to be going multi-platform and that it would be coming.
It was, yeah. That was at the beginning of February. It was 1st of February. Sony put it on their blog and said that we're going to have a PlayStation Studios game on Xbox.
And obviously, that was a big deal. That was a big big piece of news, and it was something that, there was a lot of kind of like debate and, conversation around why did this happen, like, oh my God, the power of Xbox, the power of Game Pass, whatever. And like, that may be the case. I think it's probably more a licensing thing that like the MLB.
I think it's more, the power of MLB saying we really shouldn't just have this one game restricted to one platform.
Right. And Sony probably making the decision of like, well, we don't want to lose this. And also, this is what Sony San Diego does. So like, if they lose that license, what does that studio do? Do you close that studio? Like, I don't know. So compromise that it seemed like, they were kind of forced to make, and it was what it was, right? Surprising, big news, but not the craziest thing in the world. It's kind of like, yeah, that probably makes sense. This, though.
It's not like God of War coming to Xbox. It's,
right.
It's a licensed game.
It's a baseball game. In the same way that I think, like, if we found out that, like, Machine Games' Indiana Jones game was coming to PlayStation, you'd be like, that probably makes sense,
I think it probably is, yeah.
But it coming to Game Pass day one, I think that's a whole other animal entirely.
Me too. And it's phenomenal that it's coming. Steven Totillo did a bit of digging, so former editor-in-chief at Kotaku, now working at Axios Gaming, launching their new newsletter. He seems to think that so he reached out to Xbox PR. He said, we don't talk about the nature of our business deals, but knows from experience that a lot of these deals happen with the publishers, not the studios themselves.
Right.
And so Sony's publishing the game on their platform, obviously, as they do with all of their games. But it looks like MLB actually publishes this game on Xbox. So it's likely that Microsoft had that publishing deal to get it on Game Pass with MLB rather than with Sony themselves.
That is interesting. Because I remember you had made the comment on Twitter, I think it was, where you were like, oh, like this speaks to the negotiating power of Game Pass and of Xbox. And like, I guess not. Maybe it's just the MLB.
I know, but this is not good in my eyes for Sony. Like, imagine if you have both consoles and we've gone from what was an exclusive game, you had to buy a PlayStation in order to play this game, to for my $10.99 a month, I can play this game for free, included with Game Pass day one.
I can imagine that. I am that person. I could do that if I wanted. And it's funny. I was talking about it with my buddy Mike. I was like, I might play it. Like, I probably won't play it for any stretch of time. Like I don't really like fuck with sports games anymore because they're all Sims, and I don't like Sims. I want arcade, but I always liked baseball games, and like baseball is the sport that I am like the most nostalgic for because my dad is a big baseball fan. So like he was always watching Yankee games and stuff, and there's like 900 baseball games a year or whatever, so it was fucking always on in my house. So like there's a like a romanticness to the idea of a baseball game for me, So yeah, for like free, shit, why not, right? Kick the tires.
I know, yes, and that's what probably most people will do, who have both consoles.
Yeah. Which I mean, not great for Sony, great for the show though.
Yeah, really great for the show, and this may actually break this game out of really just being, I guess, big in the US.
It's kind of been in a rut too, I feel like, like, not that they're bad, but like, who talks about the show, right? Like,
I'd never heard of it until the news of it coming to Xbox broke.
Right.
Never ever heard of it. And granted, I'm in the UK. We don't even air baseball on TV. We don't watch it. We don't even know what the rules are. So I'm not the number one person to know what this
It's kind of like
is.
how FIFA is fucking huge for you guys, and over here it's like whatever. Like it's not popular, but it's not
Madden, right?
What?
You have Madden, right? That's the big one there.
Yeah, Madden and like NBA 2K are like the big sports games here, and I'm sure that they're not nearly as popular overseas because you guys don't give a shit about American football or basketball, I would imagine.
Basketball less so, like we know that, we play that. Nobody here plays American football. We don't know how it plays. Like we have rugby, which I guess is similar, but without all the weird suits stuff that
I
you
have
wear?
no
I don't
idea
know.
how similar they are. Like, I know that the ball is roughly similar and that, like, you get tackled and stuff, but that's about all I know about. Like, my entire knowledge of rugby comes from that one episode of Friends where Ross plays rugby.
Oh yeah, it plays at
He's
rugby
like
with
dating
Emily's friends.
yeah, he's dating the British woman, Emily. And, like, that's about it. I know there's a scrum. That's a huddle. I know that. That's about it. That's all I got for you.
And then they kick a ball over like this H thing.
It's funny
And
though.
yours looks more like a Y.
Is rugby like popular in other countries, or is that mostly a UK thing?
No, it's so there is Six Nations Rugby, which is the six main countries that play rugby, which is England, Scotland, Wales, and I think it's New Zealand, South Africa. So there's the New Zealand All Blacks, which is a big rugby team, and they're like the world number one, best team in the world usually. South Africa and somewhere else.
Maybe Australia.
And I apologize. Yeah, it's probably
all those
Australia.
places that you guys colonized the fuck out of.
Basically, yeah. Basically, all former British Empire states.
And like, yeah, I don't know, because it's like when I think of British sports, like obviously soccer is the big thing, but like, you guys have rugby and cricket's like another one where it's just like, does anybody else like? I know India has cricket.
India, Pakistan, Australia. So England plays with Australia every year in this tournament called the Ashes. They play Test cricket, which are 3-day long matches of cricket. And they have hundreds of runs. And whoever wins that gets the Ashes, which is this tiny little trophy. It's about this big, which has like ashes inside this urn, which were burnt wickets. So it's ashes of a wicket that was burned.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And that just goes back and forth between England and Australia.
And then we also have hockey here. That's the other thing. That's all I know about sports now. Anyway, big deal. Interesting to see. I'm going to be interested to see where this goes from here. Like, is PlayStation going to want to keep doing this, or are they going to start feeling like they're not happy with this deal anymore? I don't know.
I wouldn't be happy with this deal.
Yeah, I don't know that I would be either.
Deal. Like, to combat this, they have to put it on PlayStation Plus at this point, because no one's going to buy the game otherwise.
Yeah, I remember Greg Miller tweeted about it, and he's like, this is a great look for Xbox and an embarrassing look for PlayStation. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, it's not. It does not make their service look attractive that one of their own developed titles is on their competitor's platform and not their own. Not a great one. All right, so jumping into the next one, we got some stats on Monster Hunter Rise that are really interesting. These actually come from a friend of the show, Stealth, who was, I think, the first guest we ever had on the show, like, ages ago.
Yeah, one of the first, if not the first, yeah.
Yeah. So he was tweeting a little bit about Monster Hunter Rise and said that Monster Hunter Rise broke Animal Crossing New Horizons record in Japan. He said in COMG, which is, I guess, their NPD.
You know, I don't know what that means.
I think it's their NPD numbers, basically. But
oh yeah, it's the COMG, apparently pronounced Kong or Kong.
Okay.
It's their video game charts.
Right. Yeah. So it's just their numbers. So he said, insanely impressive. The 3-day launch looks to be 1.8 million plus physical units sold. Including digital, we're looking at a possible 2.5 million in 3 days, which is just absurd.
That's like more than Pikmin 3 sold in total, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it speaks to the overwhelming popularity of Monster Hunter overseas. That game is huge in Japan. And it's one of those things that, like, I feel like it always, and this is, like, even for me as somebody who knew this, like, as a Westerner, it always felt obscure. Like, it was like, oh, yeah, that's, like, a thing that my friends that are, like, really into anime and, like, Japanese games, and, like, it was, like, a deep-cut, like, nerd thing. But I knew it was a big deal in Japan. And I feel like now that World came out and, like, Monster Hunter is, like, on the map a little bit more and people are a little more aware of it. And that kind of game has come into vogue, right? Because Monster Hunter was like way ahead of its time, kind of. I think now people are paying attention to it more than they used to. So, like, the fact that it's selling like this, you're like, holy shit, this sells better than Animal Crossing in Japan? How? It's like, oh.
I know.
It's a big fucking deal, man.
And those are like 2.5 million, and that's just Japan. Like, I'm so curious to see the figures when you bring in all the worldwide sales, because I know a bunch of people in our Discord have been playing it. I've seen a bunch of people on Twitter playing it.
Twitch. I've seen people streaming
Twitch.
it. Like, I think it's gonna be big. Like, I don't know that it'll have sold, almost 4 million copies, but if it sold 1 million, 2 million, that's A, not unreasonable, and B, that just became one of the best selling games on Switch. In like a day, like in a weekend. Yeah. That's fucking wild, man.
It's probably going to be one of the biggest sellers this year.
I think
by far.
I think it's going to sell more than World. And I think that's going to surprise them.
Easily. I think easily it's going to sell more than World.
Yeah.
I really think it's because people associate this series with a handheld console. It's been on handheld forever.
But I also think, and we've talked about this before, like there's a real cultural difference in the way that Japanese players play games. Like, and again,
I was actually just watching Japanese videos because like it's the thing we're on YouTube at the moment. And their apartments, apparently in average, are 35 square feet. Yes. So I can understand why they don't really have much space for a TV and to play video games in the same way that we do in the West.
Yeah.
Space is limited. And so they play their games when they can, where they can.
And I have, and again, this is anecdotal, right? Never been to Japan, not Japanese. But the smaller apartments, from what I've read, there's like this, like their lifestyles are less centered around the home, right? About like I'm going to go home and sit on my couch in front of my entertainment center for 10 hours or whatever. Like that culture is just not there as much. And so like there is a lot more like, rather than having friends over, you go and meet for dinner and things like that. So there's like a lot more travel, and like they're very, very like, centered around public transportation and like the major air, like the bullet train and everything. It's like, people take the train everywhere, right? So if you're on the train like 2-3 hours a day, that's a huge chunk of time for you to play games, So yeah, I think it is associated with Nintendo, but I also do think that like it just speaks to the way that Japanese players want to play games more. They're more likely to engage with a game on the Switch than on the PlayStation.
Yeah, I think you're right. Do you think this is going to be a game you pick up?
No.
Like I never even played World. The last Monster Hunter game I played was on PSP, so I don't know if this is one for me.
I'm definitely not going to get it. Monster Hunter is not for me. It's never been for me. I got World when it came out, and it was very much like an opportunistic purchase, right? Where like it came out in January, I think, of 2018. Or 2017?
It was the first big game of that year, and I was close to buying it because I was like, "Wow, I loved Horizon, and this sort of looks similar." And there's the Aloy crossover that's coming in. I was like, "Do I want to get this?" But I stopped myself.
And so it was that for me. Like it's January. I'm itching for a new game, especially like the new hotness that everyone's talking about, and like 3 to 7 of my like hometown close friends were all got it, and we're like, we're playing, get it, like come on, let's go raid. So I played it for like a month, maybe 2 weeks, and I hit the point I hit in every game like that, which is I don't like it enough for it to be the only game that I play, and my friends
are way ahead of you.
Yep. And then I'm playing with them, and they're stringing me along, and I'm like 10 levels lower than everybody, and I'm not really contributing, and I'm dying all the time, and it's just like, this isn't fun. Like, I want to play a game with you guys, but I don't like this game,
And maybe Rise is that kind of thing, because it's less focused on multiplayer. There's more of a single player element. I know you can team up with other people, but it's not like the focus of the game like World was.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't like that style game, then yeah, it's not for you. And apparently the combat is more Soulsy. Like there's animation stop, and like, you have to very much learn the monsters you're attacking.
And that
which
does
is
sound
never been for
cool.
me either.
But I don't know. I just don't think it's for me because, like, again, like when I played World, like the story sucked like a lot. Like none of the
I think
characters.
that's like, I don't think that's why you play those games.
No,
You don't
and-
go, I really want to play a Capcom game for a great story. I mean, have you seen Resident Evil? That's probably their like story focused game, and the story sucks. Like the story really fucking sucks.
Well, and that's the thing though, right? Is like that's fine. Like I can vibe with that. Games don't need to have a story for me to be interested, but like it has a story. So
And it's
like
just bad.
yeah, and it would be like this thing too where again, right? The whole point of this game is to play with your friends. I'm trying to play with my friends and I'm like, "Oh, guys, I'm working on this armor and I'm trying to hunt these monsters or whatever and I want to do this." "Oh, but I just got to a story mission." "Okay. All right, I'll play through this real quick on comms
Oh,
with
that's
everybody."
not fun.
And
Like Destiny does that right. Like you can progress and play with your friends without having to do all of those story mission things
Yeah.
on your own.
so it would be like I would have to like either get them in a party and go and do a thing, and then I'm sitting there while a cutscene's playing, and they're just like waiting, or I'm playing by myself so I can get past it so I can play again normally. And it was just not satisfying. It was a bad loop. And I think for a lot of people, it's a great loop. I'm not talking shit about Monster Hunter. It's just not for me. And I've tried, and I know it's not for me, and I'm not going to blow another $60 to play this game for 10 hours and be like, I don't like this. You know, and that
Yep.
wasn't even the first Monster Hunter I'd tried. That was like the third one I've tried. And I'm just like, this is not, it's not for me. Which is cool. That's fine. You know, different strokes for different folks. That's why we have more than one kind of game.
Agreed. I just very much appreciated all the memes coming out of the character creator this week. That was was having a great time looking at all those.
And I'm happy to see people like popping off. Like I know motherfuckers love Monster Hunter, and like that is a thing that I'm very susceptible to is like secondhand enjoyment, right? Of like the fact that people are like wilding out and have a good time with it. I'm like, yeah, man, good for you guys. That's awesome.
But that always hooks me in. Then I end up buying the game that I know I don't like anyway. Everyone else enjoying it.
I've done
I get
that enough.
Real FOMO, absolute FOMO.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my god, I'm missing out on this. I need this game, and then I get it, and I'm like, this sucks. I don't like this. Why was everyone enjoying this?
Big pass. Yeah, I think I've just done it enough now that I'm kind of like I got it. I know what I want or what I don't want.
And you know yourself.
Yeah, I know my tastes enough to be like, this is not for me right now. And I've gotten better about that time-wise, too. Because, like, Littlewood sounds like a game for me, but it's not a game I'm in the mood for. So I'm like, I'm not going to buy it. I'll wait.
I get that, yeah.
You know? All right, so let's jump into our main topic. So, Mario's dead. Or so the mainstream media would have you believe.
Yes, indeed. CNN's report that fans are very, very afraid that Mario is dead and Nintendo has killed Mario off. Will there ever be another Mario?
Okay. So, if you're a longtime listener, you're probably familiar with the fact that I went to my college degree is in journalism, right? So that's like what I studied. It's close to my heart, and I went to school for journalism with the intention of wanting to do games commentary, and entertainment, pop culture. So there's nothing funnier to me than when a major news outlet has someone that doesn't understand a medium, an art form, whatever, write about it. Because you get gems like this where CNN says that fans are afraid that there's never going to be another Mario game. And it's like, bro, that's not what's happening at all. And it's funny because I feel like specifically I see Gene Park from the Washington Post, like every time this happens, just dunk on people where he's just like, this is why you need people who play video games to report on video games. Like, it's like and it's such a like, you can tell that boomers run this organization, right? Like boomers run CNN because just think about it this way, right? I get it. We're big fucking dorks. We care about video games in this deep, intimate way that normal people don't. And to write about games for normal people, you don't necessarily need to know all of the ins and outs, right? But if you're going to bother to report on such a thing, it might be helpful to have somebody who's at least casually familiar.
100%. And I get that this was on the business side, but the fact that they left the story up after basically everyone dunked on it, was dunking on it, it just makes me laugh so much. And some of the lines in it are just choice.
Comical.
To be sure, fan theories on the internet aren't always reliable, and there is reason to hope that Mario will live on. It's probably also worth noting, too, that March 31st comes just before April Fool's Day, implying that this was all just like one big joke. And totally
you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, you're just pulling things out of your ass. Like, there is answers to these things if you do a little bit of research, which is your fucking job as a journalist. And again, right? Like, you said it's a business thing. Here's the thing. Video games are a giant fucking business. If you're going to write about them in your business section, have someone on your business team with a background in tech. They don't have to be a fucking expert gamer.
Like Bloomberg Business hired Jason Schreier. That was a pretty good hire.
Or, like somebody like Gita. Jackson, right? Who used to work at Kotaku and now she's like a general tech reporter. She still reports on games sometimes, but like it's more like general tech news and culture, right? And like you don't have to have just a games person. You could have a like tech person who knows shit about games, and like maybe has a background in games journalism to some degree, it's not like there's a fucking shortage of them. And it's insane because it speaks to how ignorant older people are about video games as a thing. Like, not just to not know this stuff, but to not even have the foresight that you might want someone who knows about it to report on it. Because it's like, can you imagine if like they hired me to be like a sports journalist? I could literally write what happened, but I would not be able to provide any insight or context.
And maybe you wouldn't understand the context if a meme was trending on Twitter.
Right.
Like the hashtag Mario dies.
Because like, oh my God, I'm not part of the culture of this thing that is entirely based around a culture. There is a culture of sports. There is a culture of games, of movies, of books, of anything. Would you have somebody who's never seen a movie do a movie review? Like, what are we fucking doing?
Imagine if I reviewed all the Marvel movies. I went in and I was like, oh, there's this guy that shoots web out of his hands. And
or again, that you started doing it at like Endgame and you hadn't seen any other ones. You're like, I don't know what's happening. Yeah.
This movie was trash. I don't know any of the characters or what was going on. Needs more context.
So anyway, we wanted to start this just to dunk on CNN a little bit because it was hilarious. But I did want to use this as an opportunity to kind of have a conversation about the limited release window, right? And kind of what's going on here. Yeah. So Video Games Chronicle had an article this week that I thought was interesting, right? It's titled, Nintendo is reportedly trying limited time games, quote, because data shows re-release sales wither. And you get into a lot of the data here, right? And, we talked last week with Chris Brandrick from Switch Weekly. Go check out that episode. Great interview. Thank you again for Chris for joining us. And we talked all about how the Mario 3D All-Stars collection was a best-selling game.
Except it wasn't on any of the people's top played games last year.
Right. So
people that bought the game and no one had played it.
Or had played it but not played it as much as the other major releases that year or whatever.
But
right?
What other major releases were there? I mean, there was Paper Mario, also didn't rank. There was Animal Crossing, which was number 1, but that still doesn't mean that where was Mario All-Stars? You would expect it to be there somewhere. It was arguably the second biggest game Nintendo released last year.
Right. And I think it speaks to this idea that people want to buy those things more as a collector's item than as a piece of software. And that's fine. But, with this kind of context, right, of the data that that sales do dwindle, it makes sense, right? So there's a quote here in the article that I'm going to pull from, and shout out to Tom Ivan, who wrote this over at Video Games Chronicle. Appreciate the roundup. So this quote comes from Future Source Consulting, their gaming analyst Morris Gerard, who said the strategy is sure to create urgency amongst Switch users to purchase content and avoid missing out on the experience, fueled also by the immediate attention the strategy is already garnering, right? And like, we've talked about this then, we'll talk about it again now. It works. And
and the article even referenced that Disney previously locked its films in the Disney Vault, which always fucking worked, and it was the most excruciatingly annoying thing when you wanted to get like Aladdin, but it was in the Disney Vault till next year, and you had to wait.
Right, and you saw this strategy work for Nintendo in the past, right? With the NES and Super Nintendo Minis, with the Game & Watch re-release for Mario, with Amiibo. Anybody remember when they announced Amiibo and everyone was like, "Oh, that's cool," and then they were hard to get.
And don't forget the mini consoles. They
I just said, yeah.
They intentionally made few of those, and then was like, well, we're gonna do one more print run, and then that's it. And they were just like gone straight away.
Because it creates urgency. It makes it a thing that you're like, if I don't get it, it's gone. I'll never get it again. And like, I have every one of the mini consoles. I have barely used them.
Do you know what? I can understand that for 3D All-Stars. I just don't understand it for Super Mario 35. It made no sense to just take that down. You were giving that away for free to anyone that subscribed to Switch Online anyway. It wasn't like you had to take it away. But I get that. I guess maybe they felt that, well, we've committed to taking these away, and people will feel that we won't do it. You know, it's like when a parent says, "Oh, if you don't clean your room, you won't get your toys or whatever," but then they give them to you anyway. You know, you've sometimes got to follow through with the threat.
Yeah,
and it feels like that's a little bit what Nintendo's done here by taking that down. John Cartwright even posted that his version was still playable on the day when they took it down for everyone else. Some people were getting an error, and he was still getting matched up with 35 other people. So it wasn't like people weren't wanting to play the game. He was still getting like matched up with a solid amount of people, a full match every single time.
Yeah, and I agree. I remember saying at the time that I didn't like that. I don't like the idea of like releasing a game for a month and then it's just gone forever. Or not a month, but whatever. And it's just like now it just doesn't exist anymore. Like I don't like that. And I don't see what the value in that is, frankly. Like, I guess if there were people who wanted to play it that didn't have Nintendo Switch Online or weren't going to renew and then they did or whatever, fine. But, like, I don't know. That doesn't sit with me as well. But something I thought was interesting here, too, they had another quote from an anonymous developer who spoke with Vice, who was referencing like a private meeting with Nintendo, and they said they have data that shows that re-releases of games tend to wither on wish lists. The manufactured fear of missing out helps them get those sales, or so they think. And I think, it makes sense, right? This is another quote from Morris from Future Source. Imposing these time restrictions is expected to aid these limited edition games in cutting through the noise. I think that's true, because I know for me, if there hadn't been a limited window on 3D or the 35,
3D All-Stars,
there's too many Mario games. I don't know that I would have rushed to buy it.
I definitely wouldn't have rushed to buy it, especially with 3D World coming out. Yeah. I really felt like I got a bit Mario fatigue last year. It was kind of like, oh my god, another one. And I think if they had said, yeah, we're just releasing this, it's going to be available forever, then I probably wouldn't have pre-ordered it. But because they did that whole, it's a limited time only, we're taking it away at this point, I pre-ordered it instantly.
I bought 2 copies.
That's something I want. Yeah, so that's something I want in my collection.
Yep. and I knew that I would want one sealed, and either a friend might need it, or maybe down the line when it's worth a ton of money as a collector's item, and I need a couple bucks in my pocket, and I've got an extra one. Like, I was like, fuck it, I'll get 2 of them, whatever. Because you look at the one they did on Wii, that sells for a ton of money. So, you know, I don't know. It sucks. It sucks. I definitely, like, I'm not defending it, but, like, Nintendo's not dumb, right? And I said this when they announced it. They're doing it because it works. They're doing it because we just told the fucking story about how we wouldn't have bought it, and instead they got 3 sales out of the 2 of us. So
the problem is they've tested the experiment. It worked. And they're going to do it again now for Zelda. I'm 100% sure of it. We're going to get a Zelda collection, and Wind Waker's going to be in there. And I'm going to buy it anyway, because I want Wind Waker. But if it's the only time I'll ever be able to buy Wind Waker on Switch, then you bet I'm going out and pre-ordering that day one.
I feel like they're going to do this. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I feel like they're going to do this every year from now on. I think this is just going to be par for the course until people stop buying it. Until there's like a very famous flop where they do it and it doesn't work. Because, like, look at, like, that Fire Emblem game that they put out. Like, you know, a bunch of motherfuckers bought that who would never have bought it or played it.
It was in the chart in the UK, and I was like, seriously?
Yep.
Fire Emblem?
For like a 30-year-old game?
Why is this not on the NES? Like,
not even 30. It's like a 40-year-old game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, why wouldn't they, right? Like, you get massive return for minimal effort. They sold 8 million copies.
They've already made the GameCube emulator now,
right,
as well. That's done. That work is done. Just now all they've got to do is just pop the ROM in, patch it a little bit.
Give me them. Give me them all. So, yeah, I mean, you know, as much as it is disappointing, I think these numbers absolutely prove that it's a good strategy, and frankly, they'd probably be stupid to not keep doing it from a business perspective, right? So, oh well. It's one of those tough things where it's like I would advise you speak with your wallet, but I say that
you're gonna do it anyway. You're gonna buy it anyway. Yeah,
you're damn right I will.
Hypocritical thing.
Because I'm a fucking mark, exactly. Which is why I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you to listen to your heart, and you got to do what you got to do, man. There is no ethical consumption in late stage capitalism, so don't let anybody make you feel bad about buying something that makes you feel good. Every company is evil. Some are just a little less evil than others. So do what you're going to do, man. You want to buy your limited edition games and never play them because it makes you feel something? God bless. So that's my rant, I guess, on this for today. So if you guys want to let us know what you thought about this or any of the other stories we talked about today, please remember you can write into me at pete@lootpots.com and get your thoughts right on the air in our mailpot segment. You can hit us up on our Discord, go over to the PotsCast channel, where every week we also source some questions. Yeah, get in touch. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about next week or whatever. We'd love to hear from you. We love hearing from you. If you've been a long-time listener and you've never written in before, I'm extending the challenge. Write in this week. Give us a question or a comment. We'd love to hear from you. So, before we get out, of course, remember, twitch.tv/LootPots. Go check out our streams every Thursday at 6:30 EST, 10:30 GMT. 11:30. Sorry. And of course, you can head over to patreon.com/LootPots, where for just $1 you can get access to the archive of After Dark, where Steve and I this week talked about Easter, our new lifestyle brand, and city living. So check it out. All right. So there we go. That's all the plugs. See you next week for another episode of the PotsCast. Stay safe, stay sane, everybody.